We don't always realize it at the time, but sometimes in our life, our setbacks, or what we perceive to be setbacks, are actually doors opening that send us on a new path. A path that might later play a larger role in our lives, even if we don't know about it or understand it at the time. And as the late Steve Jobs once said in his famous commencement speech at Stanford University, you can never connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. And when you're young, this may be a hard concept to believe in, but as we become a little older, a little more experienced, it's much easier to understand. And some of you, I'm sure, might even be nodding your head in agreement. So it is with my guest today, who took what may appear to have been a setback in his college career and his early professional career, and turned it into the most effective course management system in the game today. And I do not say that very lightly, but when something comes along that revolutionizes the game, you have to take some serious notice. His name is Scott Fawcett, and his system is called Decade. And it took a while for Scott and I to connect. Our schedules just didn't quite seem to blend together, but it was well worth the wait, and I thoroughly enjoyed today's discussion, as I'm sure everyone listening will as well. We just don't talk about golf and Decade. We talk about life in general. Of course, we talk about what the Decade system is, how it evolved, how it's based in mathematics, how it might differ from some other linear mathematical equations that might help in other things. But he gives an exceptional description, and we just have a great time talking today's show. I cannot recommend enough that you even go so far as to hit pause right now, go to your app store and download the Decade Golf app, because will change your game for the better, guaranteed. You're going to learn a lot about golf today. You're going to learn a lot about course management, and there may be a lot involved, and there might be a little bit of a learning curve, but it is, in the end, it's going to be well worth it, and you're going to be much happier as a result. So, as always, please give a big Golf 360 welcome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with the very, very smart Scott Fawcett from Decade Golf. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world, with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. This episode of the Golf 360 podcast is brought to you by Affinity Wealth Management Group. We all work exceptionally hard for our money, and none of us can afford to let that fall into the dark abyss of the big box financial service firms with their jack of all trades and master of none mantra, which basically means you become a number within a cookie cutter model, which is often accompanied by massive fees. Your future deserves more than average returns, and at Affinity Wealth Management, they ensure that your financial goals receive highly individualized, tailored attention from experts who are in the industry to be great and not average. As a client of Affinity Wealth, you will receive a customized solution to your customized life, keeping in mind your family's financial situation, values, and risk tolerance. Contact them today at 248-840-3863 or www.affinitywealthmg.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. Okay, third time's a charm. I'm here with Scott Fawcett from Decades. Scott, thanks for making time for the third time. It's like we're on the sleeve rule on a Saturday morning. You get to hit 3 till you get it in play.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Sorry for all the technical. I definitely figured out last week that my router had gotten knocked out by the storm the day before, so I was on Wi-Fi. That was the problem. My hard line wasn't plugged in. So now I've got people doing my roof, so I'm sitting in a car in a beautiful park. It's a beautiful day. Let's do this.
Well, hey, there's a reason for it. Maybe, and it's a good thing I have this, what is now considered older school technology to do. We're doing this over phone. So unfortunately, everyone that tuned in to see Scott do some graphics or anything, we're not going to be able to do it this time. But hopefully things will go well, and we'll have you on again and be able to do that. But as timing is everything, with everything that happened yesterday, and Will being, if I'm not mistaken, one of your first guys that you worked with, and obviously he's had some tremendous success. We have much more important things to talk about than what we were trying to do before. So can you just give us an insider scoop on how yesterday went? You had to be sitting there watching that playoff and just kind of anxiety-ridden, DEFCON 5.
Well, I mean, it's funny because it literally. I'm not a huge subscriber to the notion that this could all just be a simulation like the Matrix, but I'm sitting there watching this and I'm like, this just can't be real. And then watching him hit it off the rocks and then Sepp do the same thing, I'm just like, it was mind-boggling to watch. But then obviously, the common narrative is just that Will struggles with his putting, and it's so interesting because it'd be like saying Jim Furyk struggles with hitting the golf ball just because you don't like the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It's not pretty. But now with yesterday's data going in, he's 100th on the PGA Tour in strokes gained putting. He's positive. He's better than tour average. And the Masters, where he finished second or third, whatever it was, and the WGC match play where he finished 5th, none of those rounds are in the strokes gained putting data. If you actually brought those in, he's like 40th or 50th on the PGA Tour in putting. Like, he's just not a bad putter, and this is why I get so mad on Twitter, because it's a narrative that's just tired and it's wrong, and it's time to stop being just blatantly wrong repeatedly, in my opinion. We have stats, we have data, we don't have to be wrong. You just have to think critically a little bit, and, I'm just trying to help people see reality.
He probably, in my opinion, because I was in a similar category. I obviously didn't get to the PGA Tour in my career, but I would put Boo Weekley in that category where guys hit it so good and they have so many looks that if they don't make them all, then they're deemed, well, you're a mediocre putter, you're subpar. And that's just not the case. And statistics show that you're just not going to make that many putts out, 10, 12, 15 feet. And if you're hitting it that close on a regular basis, you're a superior ball striker, even at the elite level of the elite. And it's an unfair criticism. I have a lot of empathy towards that because I got the same when I was playing. But you're right, and you shedding light on those statistics that he's in the top echelon. Let's say, what would you say, top third, top quarter of the tour? If he's in the top 50?
I think that's reasonable. Top 50 for sure.
And people got to remember, you're in the top 50 of the top 1/4% of people who play golf on the planet. So at what level do you want the kid to get to? Because if he made everything, he's going to win by 10 strokes every week.
And that's the thing when people are like, if he would just fix his putting, I'm like, he's 9th, I think, in the world. I don't know what the updated rankings are, but like, he's top 10 in the world. He's made God knows how much money. He's finished runner-up in 3 of the last 4 majors, I believe. Somebody else just threw that stat at me. Like, if he was a better putter, he'd be Tiger Woods. And guess what? Tiger Woods is a once-in-a-generation guy, the guy that can just do everything. So yeah, I don't disagree. Like if Will could putt better, he'd be better. Like that's like saying if it's just a dumb comment. I mean,
Right.
again,
If
the
Phil,
narrative that he's a bad putter just has to die.
if Mickelson
Again,
could drive it better, he'd win more majors. Like, okay, come on.
yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that it's like it's just unfair. And again, this is why I get so mad on social media is because it's unfair pressure to put on these kids who are doing incredible things on the world's biggest stage. It's just unfair to keep demanding more of them. It's not healthy for anyone's mental health. And if you follow me on Twitter, I post this video from Sam Harris called "It Is Always Now," which is just all about mental health and just focusing on living in the present moment and everything. And I think that this world is, I don't think we're going in a good direction here. And I just want to help people be as healthy mentally as they possibly can. I don't really give a shit about your golf game. Like, I hope you play better. Really don't care. I'm going to show you some easy ways to shoot lower scores. And I hope that you have more fun on the golf course because that's tied to your mental health and well being. That's what I'm here for. It is not about golf strategy. I just don't care that much about it.
You know,
Obviously, tongue in cheek.
I think that's hugely important and a very misconcept in life and golf in general. Because, and I was talking to Bob Herrig about this. He was on a couple of weeks ago, and I said, if you look at Tiger after his leading into his dad being sick and then his dad passing away, and you look at the his, I'm not going to say his life, but his search for teachers who were highly structured. So he went to Sean Foley. Sean at that time was extremely structured, scientific, and I my outside looking in 10,000 foot theory was, Tiger's dad provided a lot of structure for him over the course of his life, and now when that was taken away, something in whether he realized or anyone realized or not, I could be totally off base. So someone on Twitter is going to say
No,
something.
you're spot on, dude.
But I think he looked for that, and then as you look at his growth until he won in 19 at the Masters against, the comeback was completed. He went to Como, who was scientific but less scientific than Sean, and then he got on his own, and then now his inner healing is complete, and now he goes and he's back to doing Tiger things again. And I use that example just to illustrate, maybe for somebody who's listening, who's heard me say that story before, what I think that you're trying to get across. Your insides, your emotional state, your mental is much more important than just where do I hit it on this golf course.
It's just way more important. Again, not to just turn this golf discussion into pure mental health, but as many people know who follow me on social media, back in 2014, my sister's son was undercut in a basketball game, suffering a massive concussion. 6 months later, he had another concussion on the exact same spot, and he wound up going off the rails. I think the concussions were a smokescreen for actual schizophrenia, but he killed his mom, my sister, his brother, and himself in April of 2016.
Hmm.
I've watched a person go from a star athlete, vibrant young man to the perpetrator of a double murder suicide. This shit happens, and I've suffered from some depression myself. I definitely have all sorts of personal issues, and I just want to help people, younger people specifically, see there are other options. There are tips and strategies and tricks to not have to go down that spiral. I mean, and again, golf is such a frustrating game. I like it's the greatest game on the planet, but man, it also sucks. It'll beat you into the ground, and I just think that these expectations we all place on other people for God knows what reason, but then also on ourselves, it's just unfounded and unfair.
Yeah, people used to tell me when they found out that I played for a living, and I say, well, first I didn't make much of a living, or I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
I've seen that. I've seen that movie.
Right. But I would tell you, it's yes, when you're playing great or you're playing good, it is great. I mean, you're hanging around with other guys who are doing the same thing, and you're traveling, you're seeing different parts of the world. But when you're playing bad and you're 1,000 or 2,000 miles from anybody that you really know, that's your support network, your family, your close friends. It can those walls in a hotel room can close in very quickly, and it can be the most miserable of times as well.
I don't care how much money you have.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you just don't need more, and more. It'll buy you nicer stuff, but it won't soothe that feeling in the hotel room you're talking about. Again, I don't know anything about Matthew Wolf specifically, but obviously it sounds like he's had some depression and other issues. Um, and I hate seeing it for a guy like Matthew. I'm good friends with a lot of the guys from Oklahoma State. They all say he's a great dude, and I wish a guy like that nothing but the best. And the only thing I want a guy like that to know is like, dude, it's just not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. And again, we all just lump too much pressure on ourselves to excel. And if you just step back for a second and take a deep breath and realize, like, none of it really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Go try to be great at something. You have to work towards something in life, but also the journey, it's that success is a journey, not a destination. The journey's the point. Enjoy the journey, because Will woke up this morning. He's got that first PGA Tour win. Now what? Oh, you better be able to be happy in spite of. Now, guess what? You're probably not going to win again for another year or two. Like, that's the way golf works. I mean, I think he's going to win more, but certainly not a guarantee he's going to. And you just have to be able to find your peace and happiness elsewhere.
I think David Duval went through something like that, where
That's exactly what he went
right,
through.
he pushed so hard, and then he wins the British Open. He's like, "That's it." It's not the jubilation I thought it was going to be.
I can't remember what book it was. It might just be some of my nonsense Tony Robbins stuff that I love listening to, but he's talking about Venus Williams. She got in after winning Wimbledon, and the first question she got asked is, "So what's next?" And she's like, "I just won Wimbledon. Can I enjoy this for a second?" And like, that was the start of her like struggles. Again, I don't know much about tennis, so I don't want to say that too definitively. I really have no idea, but I've definitely heard and read that somewhere before. But what you're talking about, Duval, my understanding is that's exactly spot on. Like, you just realize, what am I doing here? Like, again, like, I actually, the more that I've understood, like DJs taking the money and signing and joining Live, from talking with a couple different tour players, his intention was always to retire in like 4 years anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not a guy that dreams of being the world's, the greatest of all time. And I think a lot of these guys, once they get out there, they realize, wow, 18 majors or 15 majors, whatever it is a lot of majors. I'm probably not going to pull that off. Maybe I need to adjust my barometer for what I think is a successful career. And again, just making, I mean, again, there's a player that finished, I think, 120 second, third, fourth, or fifth. I won't say exactly which spot, so that way you don't figure it is. But the thing that I texted him, I was like, you kept your card, man. That's an incredible accomplishment on
Mm-hmm.
the PGA Tour. Like, I get it, Will and Spieth and these guys that are young are doing some amazing things, but you're walking your journey, your path. Keeping your card is absolutely incredible on the PGA Tour. Obviously, just getting a card at this point on the PGA Tour, because you can't just luck your way through 6 rounds at Q School anymore. You got to go play for a year. Just getting a card is incredible. I can enjoy it. I mean,
There's a lot to be said about that, because if you took 100 people and you asked them, would you rather have Tiger's career and life, outside of golf, or Phil's career and life outside of golf, I bet the overwhelming majority would take Phil's.
If they actually could see behind the scenes.
Yes, if they could see, if they knew, you and I are involved in golf, and we know, we have friends, and you work with tour guys, and so you see behind the curtain. I have enough friends who are close to Tiger, or within, let's say, 1 degree, and just well, let's take the one everyone's aware of, his body, what he gave up to achieve what he did. It's like, okay, how's he going to be able to get out of bed once he crests 50 years old or 60?
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's a perfect point, because again, like, I have dreamed of nothing other than playing on, I won't say of being the greatest of all time, but I definitely have dreamed of nothing but playing on the PGA Tour since I was about 12 years old. And right now, if you offered me Tiger's career, money, life, everything, I would not trade with him, even as a failed playing professional, because I just don't see what quality of life he has. And I'm sure he's sitting there at home like, I got a pretty damn good life. I go spearfishing. I got a pretty good gig. Like, Tiger, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are, I'm well aware your life is far better than mine. but it's come with baggage, as has my life has come with baggage. And I think that's the point, that you have to get to a certain age to really be able to put that in perspective. And I think that is one thing that Tiger probably has gained with age, is a little perspective of, I mean, again, even I can't remember if it was before the car wreck or after, whatever it was, but like he'd already kind of acknowledged, like, I'm just not going to play a full schedule anymore. My body just can't
Mm-hmm.
handle it. Um, and I used to see, I don't know why Earl Campbell used to play golf at Glen Eagles here in Plano all the time whenever I was younger, but he couldn't have been 40 years old. And like you say, he could barely move. This is one of the greatest running backs of all time. And he could literally barely move because his knees were so destroyed. There's just no quality of life for him through the duration of the rest of his life. And Tiger's, luckily, he's going to be able to live a quality life. His body's beat up, but as long as he doesn't do more damage to it, he's probably going to be fine. He's not hobbling around like Earl, but he's not going to age gracefully either. I mean,
Mm-mm.
those 60s and 70s are not going to be good,
Mm.
while also being
Hopefully,
amazing.
technology gets to right. Hopefully, technology gets to a point where they're like, "Hey, we can take this, and do these things, and it'll take the edge off." So, you'd
Yeah.
hate to see anything like bad or him struggle like that after what he's accomplished and done for a lot of people.
Well, and that's what the spinal fusion does. It is amazing. Like, sure, it starts to limit your range of motion, but like the pain is gone immediately. Like it's nerve pain. Well, that nerve is gone, so your pain is gone. But now, obviously, then he's had the wreck to do other damage. So fingers crossed for him.
Well, let's jump
It is
into
just tough.
decade your system because a lot of people in the golfing world know about it. I'm sure there's a lot of average everyday Joes that know about it, but if I'd like to get it out to as many people as possible, and if we can do that with the show, that's the whole purpose. The one thing, and I'm going to say this very respectfully, in that I know because you've addressed this a ton on Twitter. When I say it's common sense to me, I think it's different than some guy in Iowa saying, "Well, this is all common sense." And I only say that because, when I was reading on why you named it decade, then for me that clicked because I mean I started caddying at 11 or 12, and then when I played pro golf, my off seasons I spent caddying at Secession Golf Club here in Beaufort County, but I got to see core strategy from playing and then taking a step back and then helping somebody do it. And my whole thing was, even though guys who were older than me were telling me you got to fire at more pins, you got to do this. My whole mantra when I was playing, because I had to maximize the little bit of money I had, and my whole idea was, okay, you can make birdie, but you can't risk, let's say, double bogey to get it. In other words, if it's a tuck pin, you're not going to try to carve one in there unless it's. And then I thought, well, what if it's the last hole? Well, okay, do you want to even take that risk, or do you want to give yourself a chance at a 15 or 20 footer to tie or win? So, so I guess in a very
I don't
rough
disagree.
way.
Again, like I 100% agree. It's common sense
Mm-hmm.
once you see it. Because even what I will, the only way that I do push back on when people say it's common sense, again, I agree with that. But still, it's not as simple as aim it towards the middle of the green. Again, the example that I use all the time is middle of the green on number 18 at St. Andrews, where the green is 50 yards wide.
Mm-hmm.
Middle of the green is terrible advice. Middle of the green on number 10 at Pebble Beach, where it's a 500-yard hole and the green 17 yards wide. Middle of the green there is actually also terrible advice because you need to be aiming almost at the left fringe if you're out there in that 180 to 220 yard uh, range coming into that green. And so I do agree it's common sense, but still being able to specifically pick a math-based optimal target, that's not common sense.
No.
Because again, the traditional playing lesson simply says, well, hey, this is a tough hole location, penal shot. Let's go middle of the green here. Well, again, if the green's 50 yards wide, that might be, too conservative. And if the green's 17 yards wide, that's probably too aggressive. It's just once you really understand what it is and how shot patterns work and scoring averages, because again, exactly, this is what again, back to this guy was actually asking pretty intelligent questions to me 2-3 days ago on Twitter, pushing back about the idea of like trying to use game theory
Was that the
towards the end of a
linear?
tournament.
That where you
What's
speaking of linear? I read that. That was interesting.
Yeah, I don't remember what his handle was, and I deleted it all out this morning because he finally didn't reply to my last tweet, and I do delete everything out every so often just because it's so toxic. Um, the game theory, just for anyone listening, it's basically taking in the situation in the tournament into consideration because all shots aren't the same. Uh, Purses are top heavy, and the example of this is if we're playing in a poker tournament that started, main event of the World Series of Poker, and we're down to three people, and I have one chip left, and the other two people will each have 1,000,000 chips, and the first guy shoves all in, and the second guy calls him, and I look down and I have pocket aces. I'm probably going to win this hand, but I actually should fold that hand because at best I'm going to go from one chip to three chips, whereas one of those two guys is about to knock the other one out. So I'm going to move up for sure from third to second. So my one chip has an incredible amount of value. That doesn't apply in golf because in that situation I have perfect information that I can sit this hand out and improve my position. Golf, you simply don't have that option available to you because, well, you have to play the hole. But more importantly, when people would say, like, well, you have to birdie the last hole to get into a playoff. Okay, now let's pretend the pin, let's take yesterday's pin as an example. Memphis, number 18, the pin is tucked on the left, 4 or 5 yards from the water. Someone has to birdie the last hole in order to win. They should be firing it right at that pin, directly at the pin. If you do that, the left 40% of your shot pattern is in the water. And people are like, it doesn't matter. Double bogey doesn't matter. Okay. But you actually aren't going to hit that many close even by firing it directly at it. But if you pick the proper target, let's just make it up roughly 6 yards right of that pin. Now the left 40% of your shot pattern that would have been in the water is now actually really close to the hole. And if you actually happen to hit it exactly where you're aiming, you're going to have an 18-footer. So, yes, you're going to have a slightly longer birdie putt on average, but you're going to have more of them. You actually make the exact same amount of birdies by playing with proper strategy. That's what people can't get through their head because they want to take ownership. I needed to birdie 18. I fired it right at the pin. I hit it to 5 feet, and I made it. That's just not how the game works. And the reason this is the strokes gained putting, again, just a brief explanation of strokes gained putting. An 8-foot putt on tour is 50%. So it's a coin flip, meaning you average 1.5 strokes to hole out from 8 feet. Well, you can't hit the ball 1.5 times. So if you make an 8-foot putt, you've moved it 1.5 strokes closer to the hole in one stroke. You, in essence, gained a half a shot. If you two putt it, you've moved it 1.5 strokes closer to the hole. In two putts, you've in essence lost a half a shot. Now, if you think about 3 feet on tour, they average basically making 100%. So they average one stroke to hole out from 3 feet. Again, from 8 feet, they average 1.5 strokes to hole out. So in the first 5 feet, you lose a half a stroke of expectation. To go from 1.5 putts to 2 putts, meaning going from 8 feet, where you average 1.5 putts, you have to go all the way to 32 feet where you lose your next half shot of value. So literally, like, unless you hit it inside of 8 feet, again, I'd rather you be 10 feet than 15 feet or 12 feet than 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it doesn't matter that much. Unless you stuff it, you're probably two putting it. And again, people just don't want to accept that outcome, but it's the reality of it. And people say, like, well, what if you got a birdie 18? You probably should have played the first 71 holes better then. I don't know what to tell you. You're probably not going to birdie this thing. There were 10 birdies all day.
So if someone's out there listening and they're in their office and if you're moving your aim to, as you described, 18 this yesterday at Memphis, moving your where you're aiming further to the right so that you're actually getting more birdie opportunities based off your variance as a human being. If you tug a shot, then you still have a putt for birdie. If you hit it where you're looking, you've got 18 feet for birdie. If you miss it right, you've got, let's just say, 30 feet for birdie. But you've got 3 chances of birdie instead of eliminating half of your misses where they're going to be in the water. Now you're out of the tournament.
Exactly.
Okay. That's
exactly.
how I had always viewed it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it really is like it is just that straightforward. It is a mathematical problem. Every decision in life is math based to some extent. I mean, literally, my example I always use is something as trivial as crossing the street is actually a math-based decision. Will I make it 100% of the time? If not, I'm going to wait. Okay, now there's a pack of lions running at me that if I can get across the street, I'm going to be safe. But there's only a 80% chance I cross the street safely. So there's a 100% chance I get eaten by lions if I stay on this side of the street. There's an 80% chance I survive if I make this side of the street. That is now a decision. I'm accepting the negative outcome. I'm weighing my odds, and I'm making a math-based decision to try to cross the street. It's literally that simple. I mean, so if you think of any decision, technically you're weighing two options, and you're selecting what you think is the best option in any given situation. Golf is no different than that. Poker, backgammon, chess, gin, all these games, blackjack, dice, like they're all math-based games. Dice and blackjack and poker use dice and a deck of cards to introduce a little bit of variance. That's what makes games great, is variance, a little bit of luck. And then golf, it's your shot pattern. That's what introduces the variance. I mean, Will made an incredible putt on the 72nd hole and the playoff hole to win, but it'd also be like, that's pretty convenient to make two, probably 35 or 40% putts. That's pretty lucky. I mean, he hit great putts, but the fact that the putt went in meant the wind was correct, the bounces were correct, the bumps were correct, the grain was correct. And again, a tour player indoors on a perfectly controlled setting would never miss an 8-foot putt. Just straight in on a putting track, literally would never miss an 8-foot putt. And then all of a sudden, when we get out on the golf course, it's 50-50. That's because of bumps, bounces, break, wind. You have to combine the right speed and line. Like, it just requires a lot of luck, man. And that's just the way it is.
You know, when you were on Como's show, what the hell's the name of that
Swing
show?
Expedition.
Yes. And you were talking about that one par 5 where you actually aimed at the left edge of the right rough. I found that very interesting because the first hole where I teach at Old South here in just off Hilton Head, it's I don't know, 400 and some yards, but there's water all down the left side, and they shave the entire bank. It's about a 12-foot high bank, but if you get anywhere just off the left side of the fairway, you're going in the water. And at 280, there's a giant oak tree that's got to be 100 years old. So, I mean, it used to be aimed down the middle. And then it's like, after watching that, I just aim at the edge of the oak tree. If I draw it, I'm in the middle of the fairway. If I hit it straight, I'm just left of the tree. If I block it, I'm right of the tree. And explaining that to students when we do a playing lesson, they're like, why am I aiming at the oak tree? It's like, well, because you can make 4 from here. You got to career it to make 4 out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And that was even it. And the reason I brought up my history was it took me about 8 to 10 years of watching people caddying for them and then having a playing career to figure these things out, as hence your name. It did take me a decade, and I was involved in it daily. But even so, trying to get
that's
people
the whole
to
deal.
understand that.
I never figured it out. Again, this is where I never specialized in golf until I got to college. I played, most sports, and I've literally played in one AJGA in my entire life. I went to college. I transferred after my freshman year, so I had to sit out for a year and a half, and then I broke my leg halfway through my redshirt junior year and didn't play golf my last year and a half of college. So when I graduated, I turned pro because, I mean, what else would you do if you basically never played tournament golf? I turned pro, and I do think in hindsight I'm a pretty damn good golfer. I've hit the ball really far. I hit the ball really good. Now that I understand putting's not that difficult because it's all speed control. But most importantly, like, I just never had the time to figure out how to play the game. The prefrontal cortex in men, the executive decision-making center of the brain, stops developing or finishes developing around 25. So really, when you think of people historically had to get to their 30s to like peak on tour, what I believe that was, we used to think that it's because you had to get out on tour and learn all the shots. No, you had to get out on tour. You had to get a fully developed brain. Then you had to have a few years of experience go into that developed brain to then start making coherent decisions. That's what was going on historically. And what decade, for lack of a better way of saying it, just data, shot link, everything, the great stuff, PGA Tour, Mark Brody, Lou Stagner, the great work that all these guys have done that are real data analysts. I'm just a math guy. I don't do the data part. I just I know what questions to ask. I don't know how to actually run the programs. But that's what the data has allowed us to circumvent, is that need for the 10-year learning curve. Again, like you say, that's literally why I called it decade. We're going to take decades off your learning curve. That's the point. And again, like, I get it, I'm abrasive, but at some point, I have to get a point across in 280 characters. You don't have a whole lot of time to bullshit, because once you start multi-tweeting, like, I might get 20,000 people that read the first tweet, 10,000 that read the second, 2,000 that read the third, and 4 that read the fourth tweet. Like, it's just multi-tweet threads do not get read. So you have to be concise, and concise requires being direct.
What is the math portion of decade? Can you explain that a little bit?
The math portion?
Yeah, like and this is where I haven't gotten into it deep enough yet. Where I just
Sure.
tell my students, go subscribe to Decade. I said I know Scott's got, it's great stuff. I know it a little bit, and here's what I know. But if you subscribe to his app or the website, whatever, you're going to know exactly how to do it. And these are kids who I have. Well, I call them kids, but they're either going to college to play or they're graduating. They're turning pro. But I know that there's some sort of a math component on the calculations on where you should be aiming.
So what decade technically is back in 2011, they started releasing the strokes gain statistics, and they just released putting at first. And that was enough for me to start realizing, like, this is really interesting. Like, I don't know that drive for show, putt for dough is actually true. And luckily for me, I wrote a thread on it on an online poker forum in the golf section back in June of 2011, just saying, is drive for show, putt for dough really true? And so the math-based portion of decade, what it is I, as a Korn Ferry level player, created the standard deviations, just a fancy math word for basically the size of my shot pattern, both in distance and direction. And then if we know how many strokes it takes to hole out from any given area, off the tee, the fairway, the rough, fairway bunkers, trees, again, because of Mark Brody's great work with strokes gained and the shot length from the PGA Tour, we know exactly how many strokes it takes out to hole out from basically anywhere. So generically speaking, if I know how big my shot pattern is and I know what golf shot I'm facing, I can pick an optimal target, again, simply by combining those two data sets to optimize target selection. So how decade works, you take the length of the shot, you take 5% of the length of the shot. So from 100 yards, that's 5% is 5 yards. From 200 yards, that's 10 yards. You basically take the tens and the hundreds digits. So 200, that's a 20 divided by 2, that's 5%.
Mm-hmm.
That's how far you need to be aiming from any edge of the green for starters. So one criticism that honestly I'm surprised more people don't throw at me is, well, that's based on a tour player shot pattern. I agree, but it's the premise, it's the ideas that I'm teaching. I expect, a scratch to 5 handicap, they need to add 1 or 2 yards to, that's what I call the baseline number. So from 160 yards, half of 16 is 8. A scratch to a 5 type handicap player needs to add 1 or 2 yards to that. And anyone really over a 10, I don't expect them to actually be sitting out there doing this decade math. I want them to understand the concepts, keep working on their mechanics and physical aspects of their game, and then slowly evolve as their game improves into then using the full system. That's the whole reason I don't even start teaching the system until month 3 of our foundations level. I want you to get better and see the ideas in practice and on the course. So we've got this baseline number, so now let's just pretend generically a pin, the pin yesterday on number 18 at Memphis. Let's pretend the lake wasn't there. It's just rough. So that pin, let's call it 4 yards from the left edge. Those guys had about 140 or so yards in. So half of 14 is 7. So your target would need to be 3 yards right of that pin. And by target, I simply mean center of your shot pattern.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit if you're sitting on it, this is what's so interesting. People then like, what do I aim at? If I told you to hit a 140-yard shot at the white flag on a driving range, you wouldn't ask me, what do I aim at? I'm like, the white flag. You figure out how to get it there. Maybe you stand open and hit a block cut. Maybe you stand closed and pull it. I don't know what you do. But if you sit there on a driving range and hit shots at a white flag, theoretically, you should blanket half your shots left, half your shots right. Hopefully, half your shots long, but it won't be. It'll maybe be 35 or 40% of your shots will actually go long because you miss hit more shots than you just hit perfect. So that's where you start, and then the next step is you assess what the surrounding hazards are. So now let's pretend we're actually playing number 18 at Memphis with the lake on the left, and we're 140 yards. Again, the baseline number is 7, half of 14. And for water hazards, you add 3 extra yards to that baseline number. So now our baseline is 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. Our target needs to be 10 yards from the left edge of the green. So it doesn't matter if the pin is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 yards from the left edge. We would be aiming 10 yards from the left edge. Now, if the pin was 10 yards, we're aiming directly at the pin. If the pin is 11 yards from the left edge, we're aiming directly at the pin. And eventually, you're going to get to where you're working from the other side of the green because the pin is closer to the right side of the green, like it would have been in the first or second round. So then you would start working from that edge of the green. Again, you start working from whatever edge the pin is located closest to. You move 5 or 6% of the length of the shot away from the edge of the green. You add up to 3 yards if it's a water hazard. If it's just an average rough up and down type situation, it's just 0. But let's pretend it's all mowed, fairway cut, and it's actually just kind of angled down towards the pin. So the golf shot's going to land there and maybe even collect down towards the green. Well, then in that situation, because that's like a green light pin in traditional parlance, that you could subtract 1 or 2 yards from the baseline number. So now let's pretend left of number 18 at Memphis is actually just fairway run up, super easy up and down. Let's call it a -2. Well, now we're 140 yards. Baseline number 7. 7 minus 2 is 5. Our target needs to be 5 yards from the left edge. The pin is 4 yards from the left edge, so our target is 1 yard right of the pin. Like, it's pretty damn simple. It's not complicated. I mean, definitely a common criticism I get is, aren't you making this more complicated than it has to be? Yeah, I guess, but you can't just say middle of the green here. That's not good enough. That's not specific enough. And so, again, this is what shows my level of neuroses. I literally, once I first got access to ShotLink, I went back and reverse engineered Tiger's strategy in 2014 and 15 after I'd already created Decade. I went through 20,000 of Tiger's shots by hand to reverse engineer his strategy, and it basically matches Decade perfectly. The guy basically played with perfect strategy. Not surprising.
That's interesting you bring that up because
well, let me finish this one idea real quick,
Sure.
because again, back to your idea, the common criticism that I don't disagree with is this is all common sense. Okay, we're not going to get into who's the greatest golfer of all debate of all time, but it's obviously Tiger or Jack. But I'll throw a different question at you. Who are the 2 best course managers in all of history? Tiger and Jack. If it's common sense, there can't be a best at it. There's no one that's the best at adding 2 plus 2. It's 4. We all know it's 4. It's common sense also. But so no one's the best on the planet adding 2 plus 2. There can't be someone who's better than other people at course management if it's common sense. Like those are, again, it's like it's a non sequitur. It doesn't make sense to say. It literally doesn't make sense to say it's common sense while also saying someone's better than someone else at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely, because 2 instances, and one was, as I remember, as I of course was, I guess you call me or my age in the Tiger era, watching when he came out on tour and being around enough college guys that were playing in this area as I was working my way to turn pro. Guys at that age, they always thought they had to fire at the pin. And you would see guys in college, and Tiger was not a big exception, but they would have really low rounds, and then they'd have higher rounds. Now, Tiger's obviously weren't as high as the other ones. His bad rounds would be 71, 73. Other players would be 75 or 6. And then when he got on tour, I know Butch and he spent a lot of time in his wedge game, but Tiger, after being on tour about a year or two, was not missing short-sided even with his wedges anymore, unless he really hit a bad shot. And I assume that was Butch saying, "Hey, there's no reason to put yourself to where you're having to hit one of those career flop shots to get up and down. Just aim X amount distance to the let's say if the pin's tucked left to the right of the hole. At worst case scenario, you're going to have it 18 feet."
Tiger in the late 90s, he averaged making 2.3 bogeys a round from inside 150 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then once he started figuring all this out, exactly what you're talking about, from the mid 99 season where he started just winning everything through about 2007 or 8, I stopped the data there just because obviously after his stuff in 2008, it's just all been a train wreck. But he went from 2.3 bogeys from inside 150 to like, I think it's 1.35 or 1.4.
Mm.
So he gained almost a full shot a round simply by not making bogey from inside 150. And I would argue successfully that everyone on tour is capable of not making bogeys from inside 150 yards.
Right.
It just takes patience and discipline, which is why the second D of decade is discipline. I mean, decade's just an acronym. I mean, I named it this because we're going to take decades off your learning curve, but it's an acronym: distance, expectation, correct target, which is the baseline, analyze, which is the modifiers for the surrounding hazards and the weather conditions that day and course conditions, discipline, and execute. There's nothing more to the game than those 6 steps.
Well, Tim Morgan, who was on the show, Tim was a USGA chief agronomist for 20 plus years. He told me the story. I think it was on the show. He told it too. I forget which Open it was at Pebble Beach, sometime in the was it 92 or 3, I think, when Tom Kite won. Whatever
Feels
it was.
Like 92, yeah.
Right. So Tim was working on the course, doing the setup, and he's driving around early in the week, and he runs into Jack Nicklaus, and of course he's going to follow him for a few holes and just shoot the breeze because he knew him, right? He'd been setting up courses for so long, and Jack told me, he said, "Timmy, the Open at Pebble is one of the easiest for me to win," and he's like, "Why is that?" He said, "Because the greens are so small." He said, "All I have to do is aim at the middle on each one." Now this isn't even a decade, but I'm just trying to just, as we talked about Jack and Tiger, but this was an extreme example because Pebble's greens, I guess, were smaller. He said, if I hit it straight, I've got 18 feet. If I hit my normal cut and the pin's right, I kick it in. And the longest putt I'm going to have is 30-footer on the other edge. That again, that's a very broad stroke of Jack's theory, and I'm sure it got more in depth than that. But to your point,
but it's spot on.
It's yes.
Those greens are all like, I mean, again, like, well, number 10 again, because it's just the little canned one that I use all the time. But number 10 is literally 17 yards wide. That's what about the average green width is out there. If you go to the baseline number from 160 yards, the baseline number is 8. That's basically the middle of the green from 160 yards. Like, yeah, pretty much every hole out there, the dead center of the green is the target. I mean, but again, every green at St. Andrews is 100 yards wide. Mm-hmm. The middle of the green is not a very good target there.
Somebody signs up, they're going to go through the decade system, and they're playing their course, or they're let's say they have a rotation that they play throughout the year with their friends of 5 to 10 courses in Des Moines, Iowa, or Orlando, Florida, wherever they are. How do they track somewhat the best they can their shot patterning and then upload it into the Decade app? And then
no, because it's too difficult. I mean, so what I did back in 2013 and 14 is I literally measured my shot pattern initially indoors on a TrackMan. Mm-hmm. So I know how big my shot pattern is in a controlled environment. I then went outside and I did the same thing on a driving range just to see how much bigger does it get hitting off of actual grass and having a little bit of wind move the ball around. Now my shot pattern has gone from a size of 1 to a size of 2. And then I went on Mondays at my home course and I would go hit from side hill lies all the way around the range to the same target. Now measuring, once the ball's a little bit above and below my feet and you got a crosswind instead of it just being off the left, now how big is my shot pattern? And then I went out and I tracked every single shot that I hit on the golf course. What was the shot? Now I'm hitting an iron every 15 minutes. how big is my shot pattern relative to my target, not the hole, when I hit a shot every 15 minutes. So now I'm making the shot pattern going bigger, bigger,
Mm-hmm.
bigger, bigger, bigger. Pow. And like I say, there's not, people can try to go recreate that. I guarantee you they're probably not going to pull,
Yeah, good
they're not
luck.
going to pull it off. Good luck. You just need to trust the baseline numbers. And like I say, if anyone wanted to be critical, they could be like, you can't teach the same strategy to a 5 that you do a tour player. I totally agree with that. Technically, you should add, again, 1, 2, 3 yards to that baseline number. It won't be more than, if your golf game, if you can shoot in the mid 70s, or in the 70s, I should say, you're a pretty solid player. Your shot pattern is good enough. You can just use the baselines plus 1. But I will also say, if you're shooting over 80, you need to be focusing on everything else in your game. You need to pick a decent target. You don't need to go through the steps. Not that they're complicated, but you don't need to go through all those steps. Just know I should probably favor towards the middle of the green. Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't want to, again, because I'm literally, in my opinion, like totally discrediting what I teach. This is made for people who shoot in the 80s, because I want them to learn. The best analogy that I've come up on this one, after I had COVID, I started having a lot of blood pressure issues and heart issues. And so I did all kinds of EKGs and cardio stress tests and tried different combinations of blood pressure meds. Like, now, am I a cardiologist? No, but I could have a 30-minute conversation about cardiology that people are like, wow, he really knows a lot about cardiology. He's not a doctor, but that's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I expect an 82 shooter to be like. I'm not going to make you a tour player, but I'm going to make you think like a tour player, which will make you better. I mean, again, if I came and caddied for an 80 shooter, I would knock 5 shots off of their game overnight, period. So the whole goal of Decade is to get my golf IQ inside of your head as quickly and efficiently as possible. That's it. I mean, and again, like, because obviously we started off with you saying, was Will your first student? Yeah, I literally did all of this work for my own game back in 2013 and 14. The week before the Texas Amateur, I got a cortisone shot in my right arm, and the doctor paralyzed my right arm for a couple days. Luckily, it's obviously come back to life once the cortisone got off of the nerve or whatever the heck he did. But he also said, man, you probably need to not play golf for a couple months and let just whatever happened in there, let all the inflammation, you just need to let this thing rest. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. I literally wrote a 500 million cells of Excel code and formulas to solve course management. And now you're telling me I basically can't even play all the way through the US Mid-Am qualifier in August. Like, I got to take 2 months off. Awesome. That's why I called Zalatoris, who's a 17-year-old junior golfer at my home course here in Dallas. I've known him since he was 9. I called him. I'm like, dude, I can't play next week now. Let me caddy for you. I've created something that I think is what is wrong with you, for lack of a better way of saying it. He was 3,300 in the world, never won more in a high school golf tournament. He's a great ball striker. Obviously, struggles with his putting, whatever. But he still should have been dominating junior golf. The paradox for a guy like Will is he hits it so good, he thinks he has to stuff it to make birdies, when in fact, dude, you're going to, because he doesn't think he can make putts. In fact, dude, you're going to make birdies on the par 5s, on par 4s with, from inside 130, where you're basically going to be firing at the pin. And aside from that, we're trying not to give back those birdies with stupid bogeys from trying to make birdies. So a guy like that, by playing correctly, he's going to hit, on average, making this number up, 2 extra greens around. So now he has 2 fewer 8 to 12 foot par putts, which is by definition just a shot, because an 8-footer is 50-50. There's one shot of improvement right there, let alone you're still going to make the same amount of birdies. Like, that's the thing that people just can't get through their head, is playing with proper, patient, disciplined strategy. The birdies will be there almost as if by magic. But when you finish any round of golf, and we've all finished every single round of golf thinking we should have shot lower. Every round of golf, even your career low round,
It is
you think
crazy, isn't it? You shoot
it's insane.
tour pro shoots 60 and they get interviewed and they're like, yeah, I missed that putt from 10 feet on the 4th hole. If I could have got that, it doesn't matter how well they play. There's always one shot they could have made.
Well, exactly. So that's the point. What decade? It's never because you think I should have made that birdie with a 4 iron. It's I should have made that bogey with a gap wedge.
Hmm.
That's what it is I'm teaching you to avoid. Period. And so, I mean, like back to the idea of your career round. My career low round ever was 62. I shot it in the second round of a teardrop event at Caroline Country Club in Jackson, Mississippi. I played the first round. I shot either 67 or 8 with a double and a triple. I
Jesus.
was in the late early tea time. I I went home and was so pissed off. I did not sleep a single second. Got in bed, totally pissed at shooting 67 or 8 with a double and a triple. And all I thought about is there's no way you don't shoot 59 on this course. It's the easiest course on the planet. This is a joke. Like I just literally didn't sleep a second. Got up, birdied the first 7 holes, lipped out on 8 and 9, and birdied 10, 11, and 12. I was 10 under on 12T and parred the last 6 holes. I then went to the Outback Steakhouse that night with my buddies and bitched about parring the last 6 holes. And they're like, "Are you kidding?
Uh,
You just shot 10 under and you're still complaining." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I should have." It's just insane. It's literally insane. It's unbelievable. That's why this game is so damn frustrating.
if someone listening to this and they employ Decade, they're going to get on. They're going to download the app, hopefully right now. So we'll have a moment of silence so they can do that.
Perfect.
But so as they draw, so we were talking a lot about shots in the greens. How about shots off of tees?
I mean, this is
Same
where
thing.
you,
Do they have to like
yeah.
get a schematic of their course or draw it in their head and or on a piece of paper and say, okay,
Well,
here's where I'm going to aim?
yeah. So with driver, because again, like approach shots are pretty generic. I mean, for the most part, like I say, but driver, like some players hit it 260, some players hit it 360. You do need to know how far you carry your driver and how wide your shot pattern is, because what's going to be impressive is your shot pattern is going to be massive. But also, when you look at it in relation to a golf hole, it's actually not going to be massive. So your shot pattern with a driver, a tour player, if I just had him hitting balls on a driving range with hitting 100 drivers, their shot pattern is going to be over 60 or 70 yards wide, which blows most people's minds. But that's okay because typically with good architecture, they give you at least 65 yards between penalty hazards. It just has to be something they just teach in architecture school, because it's a very consistent number you see. A hole's not going to be 480 with 50 yards between hazards. I mean, it's just, but also you will find some. And what I can tell you, it's also therapeutic to understand, well, this is kind of a dumb hole. I bet the scoring average is going to be close to a half to a 3/4 of a shot over par, literally, even at the highest level of the game. Bogey's not, doesn't matter. I mean, it's not ideal, but it also, bogey doesn't lose you a full shot. The whole goal of golf is to shoot a lower score than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you do that? You should do that by shooting the lowest average score over 4 rounds. How do you do that? You shoot the lowest average score over 8 nines. How do you do that? You shoot the lowest average score on 72 holes. So if the average score is 4.5 on a hole and you make a 5, I get it, a bogey loses you 1 to par, but it only loses you 1 to the field average. The flip side of that is par actually gains you a half a shot on the field average. A par on a hole like that gets you closer to winning the golf tournament. Even if the winning score is 20 under, a par technically gets you closer to that number. Doesn't make any sense, but it's just the truth.
Well, and to me, it makes total sense. But again, I've had 30 years in and around doing this and watching, learning.
Mm-hmm.
And it it took a long time, to get to that level.
For sure.
One thing that I never understood, and finally when I read you saying it and have heard you say it, and it drives you crazy as much as it does. I used to scratch my head at it. Announcers on TV saying, well, they need to get the angle to this hole. And I'm like, well, what's the difference if they're aiming at a section of the green per se? What if they have an angle? Who gives a shit? If the angle from the left side depends on the right, okay, you have more green if you're going to miss it by 30 feet. But if you're on the right side, well, then you're going to aim left of the flag, more towards the middle, because maybe I just got lucky and that shot patterns was in my head. Like, here's where my misses are. Here's my best chance to hit the green and have a birdie putt.
let's for ease of example, let's just pretend a fairway is 30 yards wide and your shot pattern with a driver is 60 yards wide. And we've got a green that the pin's on the left side, and people be like, you got to be up the right here in order to have an angle to that left pin. Well, if you shift your shot pattern to the right, you're just making the right side of your shot pattern further right in the rough. If you aim at the dead center of the fairway, the right half of your shot pattern will get you that angle you're hoping for. Again, I don't disagree that having a better angle is better. All I'm saying when I say you can't try to chase an angle is you can't chase an angle profitably, because it's not just rough on both sides of the fairway basically ever. There's going to be some trees or a bunker or something. So now let's pretend that fairway's 30 yards wide and then 10 yards of rough, and then outside of that is trees. So we've got a 50-yard corridor. Well, our shot pattern is 60 yards wide. Even aiming at the dead center, we're still going to hit balls in the trees. If we try to aim it up the right to gain that angle to the left pin, we're just going to put more of our golf shots into the right trees. That's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's really, really critical to it is just understanding the number one goal is getting it in the fairway here. And the number one goal is keeping it out of the trees and just letting the fairway happen to jump in the way of some number of tee shots. And from there, again, it gets back to the idea of avoiding bogey is much easier than making birdie. And so you really better not make silly bogeys because of trying to do too much. Again, that gets back to shaping the driver two ways. You see Zalatoris up there yesterday, dog leg left around a leg. What did he do? He cut driver each time.
Yep.
Because that's his shot with it. And again, he gets a little nervous. He definitely tends to want to hold on to it. But dropping back to 3-wood doesn't accomplish anything except for making the left side of your shot pattern not cover the water, as Sepp illustrated. Like, you don't get to just say, I'm going to hit 3-wood and just put it in the fairway. You still have to hit the shot. And you don't, many people in math, they make this, the main mathematical fallacy people make is they compare one outcome to one outcome. They say, I'd rather be in the fairway at 140 than in the rough at 100. And while technically that's correct, you're not going to hit the fairway every single time when you hit iron off the tee. And flip side of that is you're also not going to miss the fairway every single time you hit driver. So Will pumping driver down there, like, it's pretty unfortunate to hit the cart path, and it's pretty lucky it hit the trees and didn't go into the condos or whatever that is. But it's still the right club. Notice that was 183 mile an hour ball speed on the one that he hit too far. He just happened to nuke it. He probably got a little bit of a no spin heater also. But if he laid back with 3-wood, A, he could hit it in the water left. B, he can hit it in the water right. And now you're actually short of gaining that angle. Like, now you're having to come over the corner of the water to the back left pin. Like, that's a terrible place to be.
I remember that going back to the first year I played professionally touring golf was 01. So leading up to that, I was an assistant, and the old adage used to be, well, if a hole's under 400 yards, you should hit a 1-iron or a 3-wood. Well, then I go play professional golf, and guys are hitting driver every single hole that there's not water running completely across the fairway at 260 to back then 300. So it's like, okay, there's a reason these guys are shooting mid-60s, because they're not laying back to 170. They're hitting it down there to 120. And that to me was a bit, that was the first lesson I learned when I went to play pro golf was, you better learn how to hit the driver. You hit it as good as you can, but knock it down there as far as you can, because 100 from the rough is different than 6-iron from the fairway.
But this is what's incredible to me is, again, like, I do think it's comical that we needed data to figure out you should hit it as far as you possibly can. Like, I actually do think in hindsight. But again, I'm a guy that even at 49 now, I've got 120 plus mile an hour club head speed. Like, I hit the ball really hard, and I always have. Mm-hmm. If you take me back to 24, I played in the 1999 US Open when I was 25 years old. If you take me back to that one, I was the guy that said, I was playing a 44-inch driver and could hit it past basically everyone in the field except for maybe Tiger, but I guarantee you I probably hit it as far as he did at the time. And rather than going to a 46 inch with the new Great Big Berthas and everything, I was like, well, I already hit this one past everyone. Why do I need the longer club? And I mishit it. And that's what I'll tell you is in hindsight, wow, the 46 inch just goes 20 yards longer versus a 44, 44 and a half. It just goes 20 yards longer. Now, I will still agree I mishit it more often, but it still goes further than when I hit the other one solid. And what it just never dawned on me, like, hey, why don't you take this thing out on the course and hit it 100 times? Count how many fairways you hit at 46 inches. Excuse me. Count how many fairways you hit at 44 inches and what your overall distance is, your overall driving distance is, and then think it through. Again, DeChambeau, now this is, so Zalatoris is the first guy to finish that story. I caddied for him when he won the Texas Amateur in 2014. He wins by 3. Yay. Then the U.S. Junior was in Houston the following month. I went down there and I caddied for him when he won the U.S. Junior. Jason Enlow was the SMU golf coach at the time, and he came up to me and he's like, I don't know what you're doing with Will, but it seems like it's something strategy related. Bryson fires at every single pin, DeChambeau, and I can't get him to stop. Is this something you think you could teach him? And I'm like, sure. I created the decade seminar for DeChambeau. Like, none of this was I hope to be sitting in a parking lot the day after getting into a pissing match with Brad Faxon trying to explain myself. I literally was like, created something for my own game, got hurt, caddied for Will. He did something amazing. Coach Endo was like, I think you got something here. I go teach it to Bryson. 2 months later, he wins the NCAAs. 2 months later, he wins the U.S. Amateur. And now apparently I'm a strategy expert. Like, this is such an accident. It's comical.
Might start calling you Cosmo Kramer.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is comical to me. And again, like I say, the first few years of teaching this, I really enjoyed it because it was just all positive and out spreading the message. And now just because toxic, when you got a couple thousand followers, sure, I annoy some people and you get a little annoying comment every once in a while. But now with, 50 or 70,000 followers across social media, the amount of inbound negativity, it's just toxic. And I literally can't describe how much I hate it. But I don't know what to do about it because I can't just quit. But I can assure you, I'm closer to just quitting this than you can possibly imagine because I'm so sick of it. But this, I've really enjoyed this. I enjoy this. If I can just figure out how to get on my own way.
Maybe the simple solution is just to shut down the social media and do it word of mouth. That way you're getting people who want to learn it instead of just people who are trying to knock it.
Well, and that's why I deleted my entire Twitter history back in June, because that was the goal. And like I say, definitely sales slowed a little bit. And so I feel obligated to my partner and to some other people to well, I mean, I can tweet and just, it's not that big of a deal. But then you have a day like yesterday and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, yesterday should have been one of the best days of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Watching an incredible golf tournament. Like, even if I didn't have any skin in the game, what a golf tournament to watch. It was incredible. Then actually having some skin in the game, it should have been the greatest day ever. And instead, I'm literally sitting here in a pissing match with Brad Faxon and Dan Hicks. Like, how's that possible?
Yeah, and something that was, it didn't even, I'm watching that, I'm like, why would they even throw that out there?
Because so here's the history on that. Brad literally hates me because 2.5 years ago he was on a podcast and someone quoted him in the podcast, like this little video clip of him saying, when I was putting my best, every putt that I missed, I had to mark the comeback putt because it was going in with so much speed. And so when I hear these announcers say that this putt that rolled up there from 20 feet and it just rolled up right on the edge of the lip, and they say, what great speed, he's like, I'm not sure that I agree with that. Somebody tags me and they're like, what are your thoughts on this, Scott? And I'm like, I doubt that's correct. Like, in my head, it was funny, but Brad got super pissed off. He's like, you think you're going to tell me how to putt now? I'm like, apparently, because there's just no way. There's no chance that's what you actually did. I haven't looked at your data, but I'm just telling you, I've looked at enough to tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, I can tell you based off the physics of putting, because I went into that very deep years ago. It's like, okay, 9 revolutions per second on a flat green is the most the ball can be rolling on a flat hole, where 50% of the ball or more falls below the back edge and it'll bounce up and go in. You get more than that, which is 48 inches past the hole, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's just
4 1/4.
Just nobody puts that aggressively.
No.
But Brad thinks he did, which again I salute. I want people to have that aggressive mindset, but then not actually create that shot pattern. So again, so now Brad and I are in this pissing match forever. And again, like I say, Lou Stagner is probably the best in the game at manipulating the ShotLink database and doing great work with data. He's fantastic at it.
Yes, he and
So
I have been going
Lou,
back and forth on scheduling like you and I did.
yeah, I mean, so Lou, again, because he was doing some work for me at the time, he went and ran the data, and lo and behold, I'm making this up right now, but I just tweeted it this morning. From 16 to 20 feet, Brad left, I think it was 16% of his putts short. Not like got him there, like literally short of the hole. And then we decided that we would say, because Brad said it was going in with enough speed that I had to mark the comebacker. I tried to be objective. I said that's 2.5 feet where Brad would start to mark it. So if it's 31 inches, that's where we said Brad would mark this putt. He hit 20% of his putts 31 inches or more past the hole. So from a mere 16 to 20 feet, Brad basically left as many short as he hit more than 2.5 feet past the hole. Like, and it's just the most obvious. And so Brad then says, well, that's not when I was putting my best. Like, okay, now we're going to isolate it to the ShotLink era, 2004. You had 4 seasons where you were in the top 10 in putting. We'll isolate it to just those 4 seasons. And guess what? The data was exactly the same. And Brad said, I putted my best in the 90s. Okay, we will take the number 1 strokes gained putter on the PGA Tour for the 20 years of ShotLink and see what they do. And the data is exactly the same. You cannot jam putts in, period. I mean, I hate saying it, but I think it was Sam Burns yesterday had like that 2.5 or 3 foot putt somewhere on the back nine. He'd hit a nice little pitch shot up there. And he hit a putt that if it didn't hit the hole, it lipped out and came almost all the way back to him. If that putt didn't hit the hole, it was going 5 feet past the hole. He hit it so hard. You simply can't. I don't know if he was uncomfortable with the read or a spike mark or what, but unless that putt hits dead center, it's not going in. And what's funny is people think, well, I don't really have a good feel on this 5-footer if it's right lip or just outside the hole, so I'm gonna hit it a little harder and take some breakout. What's comical is that actually makes your read have to be that much better.
Mm-hmm.
So you're on a putt where you're
shrinks.
like, yeah, like I really don't have a good read on this, so I'll just hit it harder. Well, now you've made your read even more important. Good job. Sometimes you just got to cross your fingers and be like, 5 feet on tour is 75%. They miss 1 in 4 from 5 feet, and that's 4 foot 1 inch to 5 feet. That's what a 5-foot putt is. That's 75%. Guess what? You miss these sometimes.
Well, there is a difference between if he's referring to being aggressive to focusing on what he's looking to accomplish, or he has a clear intent to make the putt. I would say that would be a good thing. And if he's knocking it,
love that.
Yeah, if he's knocking it 3
Love it.
feet past, well, okay, then just go spend a little bit of time on your distance control to dial that in, and then keep that same mindset. And now your misses are, let's say, 20 inches past instead of 31. Those two combined, yeah, that would be a great thing. But to convolute maybe the mindset of I'm so focused on making these putts and I have a clear intention to knock this ball in that hole. And if it goes past, okay, it does. If it comes up short, it does. But it sounds to me from the outside that he might have those two things. He's not separating those two and differentiating between the two. They're stuck together, coagulated. And
I want people to feel aggressive,
mm-hmm.
but I don't want you to create what would be a traditionally. If someone said I'm putting aggressive from 16 feet, you wouldn't think they're leaving 20% of their putt short. Like that wouldn't cross your mind. 1 in 5 comes up short, and that's what you think is aggressive? Like there's no way. The reason I fight these fights is because I don't want the junior golfer or the college golfer listening to Brad Faxon, who's arguably the greatest putter that's ever walked the planet. I believe that, Brad, in case you're listening to, which I'm sure you are. You're one of the best putters ever. You're now out there teaching putting. And if you're out there teaching people, jam it in, you're a shitty instructor because
Mm-hmm.
it's not how it works and it's not what you did. That's the problem, and that's the reason I fight this fight, because I don't want a junior golfer seeing the greatest putter that's ever walked say, this is what I did, and then go try to emulate it, because it will not work. I do not want those kids wasting years of their life trying to figure this out. I mean,
Yeah.
Zalatoris, again, he's probably 40th or 50th if you could actually take in all of the rounds this year. And he's not great in any of the make rates in any of the categories. But you know what he is? He's second in approach putt performance this year, which is the average length of your second putt.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? The kid has the best speed on tour, which is why I lost my mind also with Dan Hicks yesterday. When Sepp jammed that putt by on 18, trying to make it, he hit it 4.5 feet by, whatever. And Dan Hicks says, Zalatoris is looking to get a gift here. No, he's not. It's not a gift. Will hit an incredible lag from all the way across the green and tapped it in. Sepp did not hit a good putt. And that doesn't mean Will got a gift. It means Will's better at golf.
Yeah, it goes back to we talked about earlier. It's like taking the percentages. Why would you take a small percentage for one, risk everything for a small percentage of outcome when you can take the larger percentage and give yourself a better chance?
Yeah, I mean, again, it is just math. If you and I are flipping coins, and every time you flip it and get it right, I give you $20, and every time you flip it and get it wrong, you give me $50. If we flip a coin and you get it right and I give you $20, did you make money there? Everyone's like, well, yeah, I made $20. No, you lost money because you took an unprofitable bet.
Mm-hmm.
You got away with it this time, but it will not take very many times until you're like, well, this is a bad bet. That's all that strategy and math-based decisions allow you to do, is set the odds up in your favor and make consistent, good decisions over and over again. And then you just run the script and see what happens.
It's now that I understand it better. It's, I mean, I call it common sense, and we somewhat agree, but it makes total sense. It's like, why would not everybody not utilize this?
I mean, I got about 50 guys on the PGA Tour that are utilizing it. So, I mean, I don't know what else to tell people. My director of college sales is the volunteer assistant at Pepperdine, who's done fairly well in the last 2 years in college golf. We've had literally a dozen players win the U.S. Junior and U.S. Amateur and NCAAs in the last 5 or so years. Like, this stuff just works. Again, you can hate me all you want to, but
it's hard to argue with results. It
does just work. Yeah, I mean.
Well, I think the one thing you're doing is you understand exceptionally well the, I'll call it common denominators for course management. And this could be a crude way to say it, so just bear with me. And what happens is people, if we use Brad as an example, and Brad, don't hate me, I've never met you, I have nothing against you, but if you use someone who has done it a different way, but they have the ability or the talent or the misperception of what they did, and now they're going to go off on a tangent or even argue. It's like you're arguing somebody against, one, straight math, two, maybe their thought process or what their perception was, when we all know that our memories are skewed in our bias. So it's like, and that's what I see in these people who argue with you online, is that they, for whatever reason, had some success doing it a different way, and now they're going to argue that 1% success against your mountain of data that says, sorry guys, but as the whole, or tour pros, or 5 handicaps, 10 handicaps, whatever, this is what is going to make you better. It's going to give you more opportunity to win, lower your score, etc. And they're saying, no, this one time I did it like this and it worked. Okay, how about the rest of your times that you did it?
Well, again, like you say, to the people that I argue with, like, obviously the common, as I'm sure it's not surprising, the common criticism I get is that just I'm a arrogant, narcissistic, self-centered asshole. Like, well, guess what? I'm pretty good at math. I'm pretty good at golf. I hope that everyone at home has something they're good at too. This is what I'm good at.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be very aggressive in saying, I'm not guessing. I'm telling you this is how it works. Now, I will lead you around the trough as often as it takes until you figure it out. But this is, I'm right. And so if it makes me an asshole for saying I'm right when I'm right, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah, right is right. When it comes down to science and numbers, right is right. There is no.
Yeah, I mean,
well, what about, no? It's not how it works.
Sure, I could phrase it better, but again, I've got 280 characters to work with. I don't have time to soften the blow. I've got to be direct. So I am.
That's do you got a little bit of time? We could do some 9 rapid fire. I don't want to take up too much of your day.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I could talk to you another hour, but I'll message you to come back on again soon. But you've been very generous, and I don't want to ruin that.
No, this has been great.
Okay, so the first one, the last one I give to anybody, and I call it the emergency back nine because there's 9 questions. So, uh, your playing career goes really good. You win a few times on tour, and you make the Ryder Cup, and you're walking up to the first hole, and they're playing the music. What song do you have them play?
Uh, I think the opening guitar riff and whatever, and I'm not even a Rolling Stones fan, but the opening riff and Can You Hear Me Knockin' is the greatest opening of anything. When Mick Jagger just screams, Can't you hear me knocking? I love it.
All right, that's pretty cool. Uh, Best James Bond. Who was the best James Bond?
I'm not a James Bond guy. I literally couldn't name any of them. I don't know that I've ever seen a single James Bond movie. I
Eh,
don't do James Bond or the Bourne Ultimatums. I don't know any of those things. Again, this is part of the problem with having my particular neurosis of a brain. I just can't turn it off and be like, yeah, no, this is totally possible. Jason Bourne just drove a car off of the fourth story of a parking garage and walked away. Like, I got it.
he wrapped
I can't
himself in a
do it.
seatbelt and survived. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just literally can't do it.
No
And
problem. We'll skip that
yeah,
one. Someone gives you $25,000 and a plane ticket anywhere you want to go in the world. Where are you going?
definitely going to be a beach. I'd probably say the west coast of Florida somewhere down in Naples or somewhere. San Diego's nice. It's just a little too congested, but somewhere Naples, maybe the Breakers over in Palm Beach.
Yeah, that's a cool spot.
Yeah,
You're
definitely a beach though.
as a math guy. I'm sure you played a few casino games. You walk into a casino in Vegas. What's the first game you're playing?
Dice, craps. Again, this is where like I know it's. I used to love going to Vegas and gambling. Um, and now as I have to accept the realities of math more and more, it's just not as fun to me to go throw away money. But I do love the camaraderie of a good dice game. Blackjack to me it just feels like people drinking and smoking and one guy can be winning while one guy's getting his face kicked in. There's no unity. And so I love the team feel of everybody having a good time at a hot dice game.
Yeah, I'm not a gambler. I mean, I used to go to a big pro-am in Vegas, and one of the guys I would go with, he would go between blackjack and craps, and it was pretty cool at the craps table. You're right. Everybody would get behind somebody because they get on a roll, and it is like a team event. I'd sit there and just laugh like crazy. It was pretty cool.
So fun.
Let's see. The best $1,000 you've spent. What was it on?
Best $1,000 I've
Or
spent.
500. I just use
Yeah, no,
round
I'm
up
just trying to
500
think
to
of.
1,000.
I'll be cheesy and say the Sam Harris's Waking Up app. It's only $100,
Mm-hmm.
but now I've been a member there for probably 4 or 5 years, so it's probably $400 or $500. I'm a big proponent of meditation and mindfulness, not in a we're just sitting down and following our breath, but like really understanding what's going on in like a peak performance meditation type role. Because when you now this is the good thing of social media. Back in the day, like what peak performers were doing was like, I don't know what these guys are doing. We literally used to think that Tiger was playing golf hypnotized, like pocket watch, waving in his face, hypnotized.
Mm-hmm.
What I now realize he was just playing golf in a meditative state. And the day before his car wreck, he was out there in LA doing these playing lessons with different celebrities. And the day before the wreck, he was playing with Jada Pinkett Smith. And on like the third or fourth hole, about 5 or 8 minutes into the video, they wound up releasing this 20-minute video. She's like, you just seem so calm out there. And it's like you're in a meditative state. Like, how do you do that? And he's like, well, that's exactly what it is. I'm playing golf in a meditative state. And she's like, oh, wow, that's so cool. I thought so. Fast forward another couple minutes into the video. They're at like this little snack station they've set up. And she's like, well, so what do you do outside of golf? Like, what are your hobbies? He's like, spearfishing. I love spearfishing. And she's like, oh, cool. Like, how deep do you go? Free diving, whatever it was. And he's like, like 80 feet. And she's like, oh, wow, you're a real, free diver. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And she's like, why is that? And he's like, well, it gets back to that meditative state that we were talking about before. You better be able to control your breath, your heart rate. If something goes wrong, you can't panic. You better figure it out. Like it all comes back to training that meditative state. And she's like, wow, that's so interesting. When did you start meditating? And his answer was exactly what I needed him to say to try to help people understand its importance. He just smirked. He's like, when I was born, meaning just forever. He's like, my mom with her Buddhist backgrounds, like that's where it started from when I was born. And then when he was on the back porch at Lake Nona after the car wreck and everything, not the car wreck, the scandal, Tom Rinaldi's like, what happened here? Is there anything you want to say what happened? He's like, honestly, I lost my direction. I stopped meditating. I lost my Buddhist background and principles that I was, that have been a core part of my life. And again, not that I'm telling everybody to go get into Buddhism, but Buddhist philosophy and Stoic principles, that's the key to peak performance and to a good life, in my opinion. And so when I say like we're lucky to have social media, because now we know guys like Jordan and Kobe and LeBron and Tiger, Pete Jackson, Phil Jackson, Pete Carroll, like all the all-time great players, the all-time great coaches, this is what they do and teach. So my best 500 spent is definitely any dollar I've ever spent towards learning how to meditate and be more patient and mindful. And I'm sure those who've made it this far in the conversation are like, well, you didn't seem very mindful yesterday on Twitter.
Well,
I know what I'm doing there. Again, the first tweet at Dan Hicks was a joke where I'm like, F you, F that, because he said his wobbly stroke. And I'm just like, that's not the truth. It's just not true. And then in parentheses, I said, and yes, this is obviously a joke, but there's always a little bit of truth in comedy.
In comedy, yeah.
The truth in comedy was he's not a bad putter. That's what I meant by truth, not go fuck yourself, Dan. Well, but then once Faxon retweets it, he takes it totally out of context. You should delete this. Dude, Reed, it was a joke. Like, give me a break. I mean, I was actually being mindful. I knew what I was doing. I certainly didn't expect JT to chime in for absolutely no reason whatsoever, but I've never met him, so what do I care?
Yeah, it went sideways from bad perspective on the other side.
It wasn't good.
Let's see, a couple more. What tournament do you look forward to the most?
To watch the Masters by far. I don't know what it is about the Masters. I've always said growing up, and whether or not this would be true or not, if it were actually offered as an option, I've always said that if you could give me one Masters or the other three majors, I would take the one Masters over the other three. I don't know what it is about Augusta. Just something about it is just perfection to me. I just think the place is magical. I think the golf tournament's magical. There's got
to be, because if you anyone read, I think Kurt Sampson wrote it. Was it History of the Masters, and how it struggled for just the club itself, and then it got through that, and then getting the tournament going, and it got through that, and just one thing after another over time. And there are certain places that just seem to have that, whatever it is, that destiny, let's say it, that they were supposed to do it. So I'm sure that is in the recipe. It's somewhere.
Yeah. Again, that's the whole reason. In 2008, I'm 35 years old. I quit playing professional golf in 2001. I really didn't play much golf for about 4 years while I own an electricity company. Like, that's my actual job. I own an electricity company here in Texas that I started in 2002 when Texas deregulated. Didn't play any golf really at all for about 4 years, and then realized I was missing it. So in 2007, I decided to just slow down and start playing more golf, which I did. And then 2008, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to play golf this year. I'm basically going to play full-time professional amateur golf, because I wanted to try to win the U.S. Mid-Am to play in the Masters. I got to where I was playing pretty good, so I entered Q School as a 35-year-old amateur, not to try to play on the PGA Tour, just because I thought it would be an easier, avenue to get in the Masters at some point in my life than trying to just win the U.S. Mid-Am every year. That is the entire – trying to play in the Masters is basically the entire reason I play golf.
And I don't think anyone can fault you. As crazy as that might sound, any golfer out there listening who really is into golf is going to say, yeah, I get it. I would do the same thing if I had the game.
Yeah, it's heaven to me.
Okay, this one I've asked a number of people, but I have to ask you with an asterisk to it. So I'll preface it with, outside of Zalatoris, if you could buy stock in any golfer over the next 5 years, who's it going to be?
Davis Riley.
Is that right?
Davis will be number one in the world at some point. There's no doubt in my mind on that one.
Right, that, because I asked that to Bubba Kruger, who's the FootJoy Tour rep, and he was the FootJoy amateur rep for years. God, he came on the show, was it 3 or 4 years ago, right when I started, and I asked him, who's the the same question. He even hesitate, just like you just did. Will Zalatoris, and I had
Yeah.
never heard of Will at that point. And of course, obviously, things have changed.
It would be a toss-up even if you didn't give me the caveat of Will, it would be a toss-up, honestly, even if I would still say Davis or Will.
Interesting.
Davis is so solid, it's unbelievable. I mean, again, he's got a great his caddy is my old roommate. So 20 years ago, I lived with Lance Bennett, who's now Davis. It's who Davis picked up this year.
Mm-hmm.
They know exactly what they're doing around a golf course. Davis's game is just so solid. He's just got to settle in probably a little bit more. And again, I don't feel like the guy's finished out of the top 15 since he lost, since he finished second at Innisbrook. The guy's just been playing so good for months on end now. Obviously, Cameron Young should be in that discussion too, because he just hits it so hard and so good. There's just so many good players.
Yeah,
And again,
it'd be fun to
I think
watch.
this is the tip of the iceberg too. Like again, the average age on tour is already plummeting, and it's only going to continue to do that more so. I mean, these kids are coming out of college just ready. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying. Again, the other main criticism I get is that I take credit for everyone else's success and good play. Do you know what my financial arrangement is with the players?
Mm-mm.
Because you probably don't. And so maybe that's my deal with them. I don't charge them anything because I don't. A guy like Keith Mitchell's made $2+ million this year since we started working together. I haven't charged him a single penny. You know why? Because I want to retain my amateur status. So I don't charge these tour players a single cent. I have never charged a single one of them a single cent. Actually, that's not true. Matthew Fitzpatrick paid me $500 to work with his brother because I have to charge his brother because he's an amateur golfer. But all we did was talk strategy, which the USGA has told me that I can do as long as I don't teach mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how I got down that diatribe. Oh, just because I know what's coming in college. I have 300 college programs that buy the Decade app every year. I know exactly what's coming, and it's gonna blow people's minds. I mean, and I'll actually say this: I don't necessarily think it's the best golf. Like watching Bryson do what he's done is incredible to me. I think it's hilarious to watch him doing what he's doing out there. But I also think it's only fun watching one guy do that. I don't know that watching 144 guys swing like he's swinging is very entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what's going to be the norm out there on tour in 5 years tops.
Yeah, well, it's already going. I mean, you have him. Cameron Young doesn't swing like that, but he's got the length. Not. Who's the young kid that won a couple times? He works with Foley.
Cameron Champ.
Cameron Champ, and then of course Cameron Young, of course, being another one who just hammers the shit out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The game is changing, whether people like it or not, and it's fun
But
to
this is
watch.
what's
It's a good time to be a fan. There's no doubt about that.
golf again. Like I actually would say when I was in high school, I'm 6'1", 220 at 49 years old. I'm a pretty big, strong dude. It's partly part of the reason I've always hit it pretty far. I was a giant back in high school playing golf, and I would say golf wasn't a sport then. Golf was a skill or an activity or whatever. Golf was bowling then.
Mm-hmm.
But now golf is now a sport. These people are athletes. You go to the driving range on the PGA Tour, and it's really impressive what these guys look like. So now, yeah, bigger, stronger, faster. If that's the title of a book or a movie, I'm pretty sure, or a TED Talk at a minimum. And that's what's going to be rewarded in the future. It is now officially a sport where the bigger athlete is going to be better, period. Like Rory McIlroy at his size and height and strength, it's incredible how far he hits it, but he's not going to get ball speeds over 200. And I'll actually say this too. I think that about 195 or 200 is about the maximum actually usable ball speed in the game. Otherwise, it just starts going too far. The ball's in the air too long. The wind has way too much time to interact with it. Even if you were perfect, there is, I do think when people just think that distance compounds to infinity, it's just not, that's not going to happen. There is an upper limit. But if the NBA, if like being 7 foot tall wasn't helpful, and like 6'8" was like optimal, 100% of the league would be 6'8". You have varies in size because you need different positions. But if it were capped at 6'8", so I'm saying like I do think that the usable ball speed is capped at like 195,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think there are 1,000 people on the planet that can hit at 195, and those 1,000 will be your tour players in 5 years.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. I'm going to start David Epstein. I'd love to get him on to talk about things like that. If he's found anything in golf as he did in swimming and basketball and track, and that because golf seems to be maybe the outlier to that to his principle. It's like what is the ideal
Well, I
position
don't.
or size for
Yeah,
golf?
I think David's because again, this is pretty cool. I spoke at Wharton at their decision analytics conference a couple months ago, and David actually was in the session, and he and I had lunch afterwards, and then he and I have spent a lot of time on the phone in the last couple months since. I think that his contention is just more that the 10,000 hour rule isn't exactly spot on. There is a lot of just genetic code
Mm-hmm.
involved, so I don't think he would. I don't think he would disagree with any of that. I don't know.
Let's see. I mean, we could talk a whole nother show on that. So I know you've got to run, and we'll say that one for next time. Amongst a litany of other things, free
Perfect.
will, block variable, self development,
There we go.
distance, all that great stuff. Two more though. If Hollywood came to you and said, "Scott, we're going to do a movie of your life," what actor is going to play you?
um,
Everyone gets a
what's
kick out of
the?
this question.
Oh, I know. I'm trying to think. What's the guy that's kind of crazy that he's on Saturday Night Live every so often? He does amazing skits. Oh my God, he's crazy. What's his name? Oh, he's got like blondish hair. He's probably 60 now. I'm trying to
Alec
think of
Baldwin.
who. No, but yeah, he's crazy too.
When you say crazy, I had to throw that
Oh
out
God,
there.
I wish I could think of the guy's name. This actually isn't even the one I was thinking of, but it's in the same realm. Who's the guy that says more cowbell on Saturday Night
Oh,
Live?
Farrell, Will Farrell, or Christopher
No,
Walken.
Christopher Walken. That's probably me.
All right, yeah, he's a cool dude. And then the last one, in your opinion, greatest golfer of all time.
Tiger. It's not even close.
Tiger
Just
has taken a lead by about 10%. It was
it's
about
not
fifty
even
fifty.
close. I mean, again, I'm a Jack fan. Those two in their prime, like it wouldn't be close. I really do believe that too. I mean, again, this is where I think that the older generation gets a little mad. I'm not saying Brad Faxon, I'm not saying he would not have been able to play on tour this year. I'm not saying Jack Nicklaus wouldn't have been an all-time great, but he would have had about 4 to 6 majors. I mean, in this generation, just like I'm not sure that in this generation, I'm not sure that Tiger gets to 15 majors. He probably gets to 10 or 12. I mean, there's just so many great players now. And again, the difference in golf and any other sport, if you and I are playing tennis and I'm better than you, I'm going to beat you. Like that's why Nadal and Federer and Djokovic, like they win everything. They're just better than everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're pretty equal against each other, but even Will, like I'm a 49-year-old that doesn't play much golf. I can, if he and I played 10 times, I bet I would beat him 1 out of the 10. Like, there's just no chance in tennis, the similar skilled players like Nadal playing not even a mini tour tennis, like I'm not even a mini tour level golfer, they would never win a game. Like, golf is just different because of the amount of luck involved. Um, and Tiger's just light years beyond anyone. I mean, again, Jack's the more has better longevity, but I do think that like if you think of a guy like Jack, big legs, barrel chested, guy like Mickelson, big legs, barrel chested, Darren Clark, like these guys that hit it hard, but they hit it hard just because they're big.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really get injured. I mean, I've had some elbow problems, but I've never really had any back or hip or any problems like that.
Right, it's a bigger horsepower engine. I used to say that about Jordan
Yeah.
when Jordan was in his run. I said, I think the world of the kid, but I think he's like a supercharged V6. When you compare him to someone like DJ, I said DJ is like a 10-cylinder engine where he's running in fourth gear, where Jordan's running in fifth on supercharged. I said, over the course of 20 years,
It's just
I
not
could be
good.
wrong, but we don't know. But that's just my theory. Is it's just bigger, stronger, faster. All things being equal, it's going to last a
But that's
lot
the problem.
longer.
Is that's the problem with any of these debates. You never know the counterfactual, so it really is just blowing smoke up each other's ass. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and the fact that we all get so mad about it because someone's got a different opinion. Again, I'm very clear. This is just my opinion. Tiger is by far and away the greatest player that's ever walked the planet. Like, to me, it's just not even close. That being said, if someone makes an argument for Jack, I'm like, I see what you're saying. I just disagree with it. Um, but I do think that Tiger, just because of what he accomplished, but he just, whether it's the Navy SEAL training or all the running or what, or just the fact that he's kind of a wiry guy. He's a narrow hip. He's getting his power from a big
A lot of torque.
torque. Like, that's just not going to go well. And this, again, 2D distortion when you're watching stuff on TV. I just love when people are like, Will's going to have back problems because of that reverse C. Like, dude, it's a 2D distortion. Like, when you're leaning backwards and sideways in a side bend, it looks a hell of a lot worse than what's actually going on in the spine. Again, I'm not saying it's good. He definitely has that same wiry type frame as a Tiger, but just you just can't take much from these 2D stills and
Mm-mm.
say like he's going to have back problems.
What you have anything coming? You got a book or anything coming out? You're lecturing somewhere people can go
No,
watch
I mean at
online
this
or
point,
anything?
honestly, just if you Google Decade, you'll find it. I give away month one of Foundations for free. Just that I really think it's a great month just to help. It's a no credit card required. Just here's month one for free. Just knock yourself out. I really, again, even though I sound like an asshole on social media, I really do just try to help people. And sure, I'm trying to make some money along the way, but I literally give month one away for free simply because I think it's a great month. It's going to help anyone play better golf. I mean, month one alone is going to drop 2 to 3 shots off your game, depending on what your starting score is. Um, yeah, just if you Google Decade Golf or Scott Fawcett is an asshole at
Yeah,
this point, you'll probably find me.
I'll have. Well, I always do. I put all the links to all your websites, social media, everything in there in the summary, so it's one click and people can get to it. I highly recommend it. I'm going to not only I'm going to do the subscription because I turned 50, and I haven't played in really 4 years. But now that I get to play some of the PGA section stuff at the senior level, I want to see what I can do for a couple of years.
Exactly.
And
It's just fun to compete, man. I mean,
yes,
again, like I don't hide it. Like I've got my own problems, man. I definitely I'm better about it now, but I definitely whenever I tend to not work as much, I tend to drink too much. I can definitely get myself in trouble with that. Um, but you gotta take the message for what it is and look through the noise because it really does just work. And I really am just trying to help people not just play better golf, but literally live better lives. Again, not to circle back to my sister and nephews, but like I've just seen this shit go wrong. And I hate being a fatalist, but I'm not in a global warming sense, like worried about the planet, but I'm worried about the planet because I've now got 9 and 12-year-old daughters. Unless we figure our shit out a little bit better than we're currently doing,
mm-hmm.
it's not going to be good. Like the world doesn't just get to exist forever. Um, there's the Fermi paradox of if there's aliens out there, why haven't they got here yet? And I agree with
Because
that.
they're saying
And that
fuck that. What do we want to go there
well,
for?
no, but the answer is, and again, because like you don't even have to travel the speed of light. You can colonize the galaxy in just a couple thousand years simply by just trying to. And so if there are other intelligent life forms out there, and we're over the course of billions of years, they should have colonized everything here by now. And the Fermi paradox is simply maybe we all just eventually, once you start getting a little too technologically advanced, all of society just implodes. And I think that's ultimately the outcome. I hate saying it that way. I'm sounding super nihilistic right now, but I pretty much am. Whether that's 200 years or 2,000 years, I don't know. But unless we figure our shit out, this is not going to end well for our grandkids' grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like we need to do better. And you're like, well, then stop telling people to fuck off on Twitter. Well, fair enough. Fair enough. I could have done better with that. Again, I really did say it as a joke the first time, and then Brad just pissed me off. So then, yes, I probably went off the deep end. Sorry, Dan. Brad, fuck you. And to the kids watching at home, don't cuss.
Cool. Well, hey, I really appreciate it. I will. I'll get a hold of you this week. I send every guest a gift. I hope you like that. And I'll in the next couple of months we'll reach out and we'll do this again because I obviously love to pick your brain more on a variety of other topics and really enjoy it.
Oh, the other topics you mentioned would be great. I really do. This is perfect timing. Honestly, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to posting it on my social media, just telling everybody like, hey, take a break, give this a listen, because I feel like I explained myself as well as I possibly can here.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Scott. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Enjoy the day.
You too.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up again on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's PARADIGM. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353.